Wow, I'm giving you guys some real whiplash going from a clown to a death doula, but I just had the best chat with Erika Lim. She's a Los Angeles-based death doula. And for those of you who don't know what that means, she gives such an in-depth description of what she does. And I don't know how much of this episode was a comedy podcast per se, but I feel like I was holding back a tear the whole dang time. You know, we do talk a lot about death and dying and whether or not there is, you know, quote, the other side. And I know that's not the cheeriest of all subject matters to gab about, but I do think this is an interesting episode to listen to for the simple reason that it turns something that is inevitable and spooky and daunting into something that is a little bit more palatable and honestly beautiful in its own way. I mean, honestly, you can probably tell I'm on my period while doing this episode because my questions are morose. In any case, I think you guys are going to love what she has to say. She has such a wonderful point of view on something that I think we really tiptoe around. You know, I got to shout out Leisure for sponsoring this podcast. They're keeping us hydrated, and they're probably keeping us living longer. Don't quote me on that. Don't come for me. But use code EPETROS10 for 10% off. And welcome to Emily Talks To. Miss Erika, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah?
I am really good. I'm happy to be here with you.
You have no idea. I have been stalking your website for a long time, which I said this to you a few minutes ago. Your website is exquisite.
Well,
The details are strong. I honestly have such an in-depth list of questions to go through, and I'm going to try to keep this within 40 minutes, but there's truly no way.
let's just vibe, Emily.
We're going to vibe.
We're gonna vibe.
We're also going to try to sprinkle in a little bit of humor and levity into this.
I would like that to be most of it, but
You
we'll
know,
see how it goes.
As much as we can, because I know, you know, what you do is inherently a little heavy, but I'm just excited to learn. I'm excited to get to know you as a death doula, as just you, Erika. So we're going to dig in.
Yeah, let's go.
I want to know what you were like as a kid. What was your kind of MO? Were you like spunky, crazy, introverted, quiet?
Yeah, I was friends with everyone.
Okay.
I never rocked the boat. I was like youngest child, and just kind of like dragged everywhere. Like my parents were really busy building a business and just dragging me to the salon, and so I just kind of like went with the flow. That was my vibe as a child. And
Were you an old soul?
No, I wouldn't consider once I started hearing about like an old soul and a young soul, I was like, I think I'm a younger soul, but like in this breach of like learning a lot in this life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you probably in the last 10, 15 years have had like a PhD in life.
Yeah.
Just very intense.
I think so, but I don't feel wise. Like I've been around old souls and I was like, oh, you know way more than I do.
Got it.
And there's like a depth and a breadth that I was like, whoa.
Okay.
I'm not there.
Were you like a playful kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved climbing trees. I loved kind of like seeing what my brothers were doing, my older brothers, and like jumping in with them and playing. And I think I just got along with everyone for the most part. And with like my parents always said like I was the easy one.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really get sick much. I wasn't really dramatic about anything. I remember crying a lot.
Sure.
But I was a sensitive kid, that's for sure.
Were you in tune? Like, were things a little bit more intense because you could feel things stronger, would you say?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I was a really observant kid and a very sensitive kid because of that. And also, you know, I think typical like children of immigrants wasn't able to really express a lot of that.
Got it.
And so I kept it all in and just like rode with the current. And so a lot of that stuff like has come out as an adult, and it continues to, and is showing itself. But yeah, I think as a kid, I had a really strong intuition. There is a story. I'm going to tell you a story real quick.
I'm excited.
So, and my parents didn't tell me this until I was an adult. But in the house that we grew up in till I was like 8, we had a backyard, and I have a couple close family friends that are clairvoyant. And my parents invited them to come to the house to like assess the house. And one person, my uncle, was like, okay, so there's like 3 spirits in your backyard, but they just live there. That's their home in the trees.
Stop.
Don't cut them down.
Oh, in the trees?
In the tree area in the backyard.
But they were good juju, not like spooky.
Yeah, they're like, all good. Don't cut down the trees. That's their home, and you'll be fine. And so my dad's like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, same thing. A cousin came over who who also can see, and she was like looking outside, and my dad was like, do you see them too? And she's like, yeah.
No.
Yeah. And so what my dad told me later on was that like I was their favorite kid to like play with. Like I would be outside.
Wait, the spirit's favorite kid? No way.
And I would be by myself, or I'd be giggling, or be just kind of hanging out. I would be young, like little, 2, 3 probably. I don't remember this at all.
Okay.
But that's what my dad said, was like, yeah, you were
just hanging with the spirits?
Yeah.
They do say that when you're a baby, and also the same goes with animals, we're more sensitive to the other side.
I believe it.
Right?
Yeah.
And then once we get older and we're taught logic and math, it just,
everything becomes like, the world becomes so much smaller, I think. Yeah. Or worldly.
Yeah. So then did you, I mean, this is a weird way to phrase this, did you experience death around you at a young age? No. It wasn't like a grandparent passed and it...
No. There was no... I think a lot of people go into this work after having like a really big experience around death. That hasn't happened in my life. It's a bit like, I still wonder why I'm like, how did I get put in this work? Well,
that was going to be my next question is what led you into being a death doula?
Yeah. So before the pandemic, I was working as an occupational therapist. I'm licensed as an OT. And I just didn't really like the healthcare system and how it's set up, and like the limitations. There were so many limitations that I knew that like my spirit wanted to give way wider than what we can within this system. And so when the pandemic hit, I actually was able to kind of stop working for a bit and reevaluate, like, where else can I work? And hospice always called me. End of life always just sort of like, hey, there's something here.
Okay.
And my friend Larissa, who's another OT, was just like, hey, I heard about this thing called a death duel on a podcast. Go check it out. And I was like, okay. And that was it. I just like Googled the shit out of everything of like all the doula stuff. And it just called me, and it was like, yeah, this is right. This feels good.
Right.
And I just kept like pulling that thread. I like found a certification during the pandemic, and I did that, and that moved me. If I were to answer it briefly, it's like there's just such a richness at end of life. I think it's like, you can avoid so much throughout life.
Totally.
That at the end, so much stuff wants to come out, like it's ready to come out. And so to be able to create more of a container for everyone's sort of stuff to come up, even though like fears, but also so much love.
Totally.
The rich shit, right? That like, what do you want to tell each other? What is it that you've been wanting to like do before you go? Like there's just so much that's been repressed throughout so many years of living that I think at end of life, there's like a freedom that is there, and people just need permission a little bit.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
There's
such an ominous feeling around death. I feel like, especially in the Western world, where it's just like, okay, you die and that's it. Or some people leave you or believe you go to heaven or whatever that is. But there is something, I connect to you in the sense that death has never been a fear of mine. Now, if there's a gun in my face, I'm going to be absolutely terrified. But the concept of not existing honestly sounds pretty peaceful. And I'm so excited to get to know what that work is you do, but there is a huge difference between what you do and what hospice is, right? Like hospice, there's no real like emotional aspect to it, right? Or is there, or does it depend?
There is.
Okay.
I would say the spirit is very much similar.
Okay.
Creating comfort for people at the end of their lives. But the ways in which you do it is very different. So hospice is more of a medical model, right? For the most part, you're getting a nurse, a bath aide or a CNA, a social worker, and a chaplain. So the chaplain will come and help with the emotional things or the spiritual things.
It's a group of, okay.
It's a team that comes to be able to like help prepare you and the family. So it is a very similar vein. I like to say that the doula kind of covers everything in between. So, you know, whether it's like the family issues or dynamics, if family is having, you know, a difficult time because caregiving is exhausting, how do we create a care plan so that people are taking rotations? Who's giving them permission to take rotations? Right. A doula comes to really talk directly to the person that's dying and ask what their wishes are. What is it that you want this time to be? What brings you the most comfort in when you're in pain, when you're ill, and really curating the space around them to make it more of a sacred, like womb. We like to say, you go in through the womb, let's leave through the womb. Like a very like comforting, safe space. And so whatever that safety looks like, the doula, it's the doula's job to kind of see and talk to the people, the tribe around, and help facilitate that. So yeah, it could become in the form of environment. It could be just in presence, like being there as like offering permission for everyone to feel what they're feeling.
Right.
Have a place to be able to talk through things with someone, whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotional. And then
so
also
important.
like advocating with healthcare team, you know, of like, okay, we do work directly with hospice. I love hospice. I think it's a beautiful movement that happened in this country, to really be able to support that end of life time. And so being able to listen to the wishes of the person, create the space around them, and then communicate that to anyone coming into the space, right? This is going to be a chill, quiet space.
Totally.
We're going to or like, it might not. We're only going to play like Led Zeppelin, for, you know.
Whatever you want.
Whatever. You like, if you want to smoke in here, great, because this is what the person wants, you know. But you're like curating the space to make sure that they are doing the things that makes them feel peaceful so that they can go whenever they're ready and go peacefully.
That paints such a better picture of hospice. My mom tells the story of my grandma, her mom in the hospital, and by no means did they think it was, you know, her time to go, but she was nearing, and someone just, you know, came through the door in her hospital room, was like, "Hi, I'm from hospice, like we're going to start." And it just was so jarring to kind of hear those words, because I think when you hear hospice, you're like, okay, this is it.
And
and someone's just going to be taking me out. But I think first of all, I think they could have handled that differently, but also to think of hospice in a different light, that's more comforting, and they have your best wishes in mind, and that's the hope that what they're doing is that. So then walk me through the process. Who books you? Is it the family? Is it the person who's like, how do they know the timing? Like, what's that whole process?
It's such a mix. But I always say, like, there's no wrong time to reach out to me. If you're healthy and you want to plan for yourself, let's say, you know, people will come to me and be like, my mom had dementia, and, you know, we've had 10 years before she passed where she just deteriorated, and that was the hardest thing ever. Like, I don't want that for myself. I want to plan out my wishes. If I ever get dementia, this is what I want for myself. And we would do that together. You know, we would make sure that her wishes are known, like on written and in video, so that if anything ever happens, she can feel at peace knowing that she has some certainty of how she's going to go, and that, you know, she doesn't need to be a burden on the family.
Got it.
That's a lot of the value of like what people feel when they want to plan ahead.
And this transcends wills and any sort of like legality or like legal papers of the death, or is this just the way that they hope to pass, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I always recommend them to do like a will and healthcare directive and a lot of the black and white paperwork with an attorney, with an estate planning attorney. And then I'll do a lot of kind of the more emotional wishes planning. How do you want this aging time to look like for you?
Wow.
What is it that, you know, if and when you do have like a few weeks left, what do you want the room to look like? What do you want it to feel like? Who do you want there? Who do you not want there?
And then do you help execute that, or is that then up to the family?
If they want me to continue, yeah.
Okay.
I'll help execute that.
So you can kind of come in as much as they want or as little as they want, because I'm thinking, what if there was a scenario where a family member reached out to you and they were like, my aunt is passing away. And then what if you get there and the aunt is like, I don't want to do this. Like, do you ever have conflict between the family members and the individual?
I try to make sure that communication's clear of why I'm coming in
Before you get there.
Yeah.
Got it.
But usually what'll happen is, because sometimes, you know, the kids might not know how to explain me to the parent. And so I'll just tell them, I'm like, can I just come by and meet them and like talk to them for like 30 minutes to let them know exactly why I'm here.
Totally.
Or on a phone call, like, let me just talk to them for like 30 minutes and let them know what my deal is. Let them get a vibe for who I am.
Yeah.
And see if they're open to it, you know? Because a lot of times, I get it. There's sensitivity around like as a parent, you're bringing a death doula to me. Like, you want me to go?
Sure.
You're making me go faster? Like, what the hell?
Right.
And so
But then you demystify that, right? Like it almost sounds like you're like a death therapist. Like you help them throughout the full process.
It's just like a companion, you know? It's like, let me walk with you. Let me help you make this road a little more peaceful, a little softer. And, you know, with the foundation that your kids want this for you, or
like for
whoever
their best
called
interest.
me in.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the intention behind calling me in is so lovely.
Yeah.
Right? It's so beautiful. It's like they just want someone to soften this time because it's really intense.
Well, also, we don't know what to do. I mean, no one, whether you're the person passing or the family members, there's no like preparation.
There's no textbook
no.
for how to die.
No.
Yeah.
And are you ever there in the room when the person passes? Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And it's, you know, and that was a thing that was so common back in the day in all of our cultures, is that people experienced death. People died in the homes. You were around your loved ones when they died. And it's a really sacred time. I don't know if you've experienced being in the room when someone has died, but
I haven't. And it's so interesting. I feel like I would have I would have an easier time doing that for someone else. But if it were my family, I don't know if I think I would have to do a lot of dissociate or like compartmentalization in order to be there, because it's too close. But I do feel like if it was someone else, I could exist in that space. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's wild, but I get it.
Yeah.
We have kind of shied away from that and put people in homes and made someone else take care of them. And
they're like hospitals. Like a lot of people die in hospitals.
Right.
That like, it's just so uncomfortable.
It's very bleak.
Yeah.
It's very...
There's noises everywhere. There's people that you don't really know. Like,
it's scary.
It's a bit intense, yeah. And so the culture shifted so much. And so the doula movement is to bring it back of like, you know, talking about being with people at the end. It's quite sacred for everyone. You could feel the energy in the room. It's not even like you're seeing it's like you're watching someone like really slowly and gradually pass, and the body's so intelligent, like it knows what to do. It's so smart, and it shuts down really gradually, and there's signs, and you know, they always say that dying, like illness is painful, dying is not painful. Because the body knows what to do. And it shuts down in such an intelligent way that, you know, being with that happening, you just feel really close to not just the person, but like just the unspoken, right? the
Right.
spirit, and I think there's a I don't know how to explain it, but you just get closer to, by experiencing death firsthand, the dying process in this way, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's not talk about very abrupt deaths and things like that, but like in this way where you're seeing someone and you're being with someone towards the end and you're sitting vigil and you're seeing it, the body slowly go and the spirit want to go. It's, you can feel like a humanness. It becomes less about me and mom, if that makes sense.
It transcends like the interpersonal relationship between the two.
Yes, thank you. It transcends the like worldliness, fears, and like denial of death. Like it's just like you can see it.
This sounds very psychedelic. This is wild. Whoa.
Yeah.
Is it ever violent though? Like, are there ever times where someone's like choking or it's not as peaceful?
I haven't experienced that yet.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when I'll be called in, at least in my experience, I'm still a baby doula. Like, let's be real, right? They're calling me in because they're either already on hospice and their illness is already there, and like it's not an abrupt death. It's not like a very kind of violent death. It's usually pretty gradual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when you can prepare for that, it can be quite slow.
Got it.
And peaceful.
Kind of the family can have time to have those conversations and let it be.
Yeah.
So then are there ever any common threads? Like I've heard the death breath, like there's like
rattle.
some type of inhalation that happens. I've heard, people, the family members opening a window to want to let the spirit go out. Like are there kind of common threads in your experience?
Everyone's so different.
So different. Okay.
So different. And I'll try to, I grew up Catholic, but then like my ancestors were Buddhist, and I could feel that in this life. Like I love Buddhism. Like I think it's really smart and it really makes sense to me. But I feel I'm pretty open to whatever the belief systems are. Let's go. Like, let's do all the things that you feel is right for this peaceful passing and this peaceful like movement of the soul or whatever you think it is. And so, yeah, some people want to open the window. I'll always kind of recommend right after the body, right after the death happens, to like, for the family to just sit with it, right? To absorb what's going on, to absorb change. And we'll do like a washing ritual as well as kind of a last, or I'll offer that to the family. Sometimes they'll want to, sometimes they won't.
Okay.
But to offer kind of that last act of love for the body, to like clean them, wash them. And then while you're doing that, be very mindful of like the texture of the skin changing, the colors changing, the stiffening happening, the temperature changing. Just because that mindfulness exercise really offers people the ability to be like, oh, mom is not really here anymore. Because I think that like when people call the funeral home right away and they pick them up and they leave, everyone's just still in shock of like, what just happened?
Totally.
And then it's just like, and then I imagine the grieving process just being extended by so much because you couldn't even be present in the moment, right? Or you couldn't just pause and like stop everything and just be with mom in this form.
That sounds so hard. I mean, but hard can be beautiful.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's all negative, but I can't even imagine the mental processes happening where you're essentially, I don't mean to sound trite, but like touching a corpse, but to understand that that's not your mom anymore. That's just the vessel that was holding the spirit of her. And so then what are your thoughts of the afterlife? You grew up Catholic. Okay. But you don't, you're not Catholic anymore.
I'm still Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still Catholic. I still go to churches that I like going to, like with very specific priests that might be very progressive and And I go for the music too. And I go for like the presence of a church. But I would say like lifestyle wise, well, no, I don't know. I'm very spiritual.
Yeah. So you believe
believe
that there is an afterlife, or there is somewhere, something. It may not be the pearly gates, but
yeah, my understanding, I don't know where we go.
who does?
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm not going to claim like I know where we go, but I do know that like the spirit goes somewhere. And whether that's in reincarnation into another body, whether that is into heaven, whether that that's not important to me as the destination, but for me, because I know that there's a journey happening, I want to be able to make sure that that journey is, the spirit going into that journey feels good, feels safe, feels ready to leave whatever this chapter was.
This is so holistic. It's not just for the family, but you're also respecting the spirit of the deceased.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
Well, it's a beautiful time at the end where you can really just, show the spirit, like, look at what you've done with your life. How wonderful.
Yeah.
And like, yes, maybe you feel regret or maybe you feel difficulty around certain relationships, but like, you did your best, I'm sure. Like, you tell me, did you do your best? And we'll go into that. So that they can start to feel, at least their like spirit on this realm can feel more at peace so that they can leave peacefully. It's just like, I don't know where they go, but I know that energetically the spirit goes something like leaves.
Okay.
I believe in energy, right? I believe that like when this body dies, it becomes something else. The spirit goes, it becomes something else, whatever it is.
It doesn't stay in the body.
It doesn't stay in the body.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, when you said, you want them to feel at peace, have you ever had someone where maybe the family members are outside and the member who you're helping whispers like, I cheated on my wife 30 years ago, or like spills all this tea?
No, I haven't.
No? Okay, because
No.
I'm like, do you tell the family?
I
Do you
look
just like
forward to that, though. Yeah.
some like little secrets,
Well, that's the thing is like, I'll get secrets for sure, but I'll always ask for consent of like, do you want to talk about, like, do you want to like iron things out around this? Do you not? And I respect them for like, it's your decision,
right?
I'm not going to tell you how to go peacefully, like
whatever you think is peace.
And
you're
then
just kind of,
I'll help you facilitate.
Right.
Like if you want to squash that, like, okay, let's do it in a way that makes sense. Is it a letter? Is it a one-on-one? Do you want me to help facilitate that conversation? Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, like people like to just like spill for sure. When you open the space, they'll spill, which I'm happy about. But for sure, I'll pick things out and be like, do you want to do anything with this one?
Sure.
Do you want to do anything with this one? Or
And they may be like,
peace?
no, I'm good.
And then it's like, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you ever have dreams of dying? Maybe not you specifically, but of death?
No. Not really.
Maybe because it's so much of your conscious mind that your subconscious is like, I'm good. I'm fine.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel like I might have had one recently, actually. I can't remember that much, but I remember coming out of it. I'm like, oh, that was, I don't have these very often.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Huh.
But I don't remember my dreams that much.
Really?
I think when I'm out, I'm out.
We're deep in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like,
The
go ahead and
delta
travel.
waves.
You can go away.
Yep.
Like, you don't need to be in this body or in this world right now.
So you don't have nightmares really? Like that's not, not at all. Okay, so then what are you afraid of? Because if death is something that is such a prominent fear for people, are there, it can be as simple as like spiders, or it can be bigger, issues.
What am I afraid of? Sharks freak me out. Like, there's no emotion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know if they want to be around you or not.
They probably don't.
They probably don't. It's the same thing with, like, birds. They have no emotion, right?
Terrifying.
Like, those faces where they can't really change to show you what they want from you.
Yeah.
Those animals freak me out a bit.
You seem pretty fearless.
No.
Okay.
No, it's like all my own ego. It's like, you're not doing enough, like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's
Kind
like
of self-deprecating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I'm like working with new clients or working with people that I've like conditions I've never worked with before, my ego goes hard.
Like imposter syndrome.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know what you're doing. Where are you doing this right now? Are you kidding me? Like death is one of the things that people fear the most, and you're going into that space with them.
Yeah, the stakes feel high.
Totally. Yeah.
But you're so equipped. I mean, you're...
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah. Hello?
I'm learning. It's such a learning with no death is the same.
Yeah.
And I'm being very humbled by it all. Like this, I could feel this year specifically is a big growing year. Like big stretch marks grow like all over the place. Stretch marks.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful because I think once you like cross a threshold and be like, okay, I'm going to do this work, the universe is like, here you go. Boom, boom, boom.
Every
and
time.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when you are on the right path, no matter how kinked and weird and up and down it is, the universe will keep being like, here you go. Here you go.
Yeah.
You know, and just guide you in that. So that's amazing. So with every episode, I do a little bit of word association.
Okay.
That kind of deals with your field. And I would love to get whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
Word, phrase, anything.
Here we go.
Hospice.
Good.
Cadaver.
Veins.
Do not resuscitate.
Fill it out.
Dora the Explorer.
Oh, mochila.
Love.
Mochila.
Love. Oh my God. My grandma's so funny. She's so ready to die. She's over it.
Yeah.
Like, she's so ready to be with her dogs and like...
Bless her.
And this was a few years ago. She's still with us. Something happened. I think she hit her head. The ambulance came and she was so mad that they brought her back. She was like, I was starting to see blue flowers.
What?
Like, and these fucking people, like, let me go. But she just has that strong Polish energy. She's hanging.
What?
I know.
Let her go.
I know.
Maybe
So-
we should do some death contemplation together.
Right.
Rush her along if
Right?
that's what she wants.
Yeah. I think she's just like, I've lived enough.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. I'm good. I have to tell you this story. It is so obscene. So in college, I took like a death class, basically.
I didn't know college. Like, a lot of people have told me about these death classes and how they're like the best course they've ever
So
taken.
trippy. So trippy.
Where was yours?
So I went to BU in Boston, and I forget what the course was called, but it basically explained different cultures like death rituals, and it covered everything spiritually within different religions, like the physicality of death and how people... We watched a video on what's it called when you like drain the body and then...
Embalm?
Yes, yes. And so the teacher said, you guys have two options. You can either write a 10-page paper about some death ritual, or you can go to a funeral and make like a fake pamphlet that would have to do with what you saw.
Okay.
So in my head, I was like, fuck a 10-page paper. Yeah. Let me make the pamphlet. So my friend and I look at the public obituary. Even saying this, I'm like, there is a special place in hell for me. And we found this one, public funeral. Yeah. We drive probably 30 minutes out of Boston. And I remember the Uber driver was like, I'm going to wait outside because I don't know what you guys are doing. So
already skeptical.
100%. I thought I was about to walk into like a church where you can kind of sit in the back with like the pews and just like observe. We walk in to a very intimate like funeral home where everyone's dressed in black, huge Italian family. Here we are in our goddamn jeans, just like trying to fit in. And it was open casket, which I've never experienced before. And they immediately were like, who, what, where, when, why? And it really just like...
We're here for a class.
Literally. We were like trying to play into it. And then we're like, this is so disrespectful. It's time to leave. But it really is wild to be a third party in that scenario because everyone is so connected to the person who passed. And to have this kind of like third person perspective onto something so heavy kind of made me feel like, okay, I wonder what it would be like to be in hospice or to be in that space where you're not fully connected to the person, but you can still have that empathy and care for them.
Yeah.
Wild.
No, you're right. It
Wild.
does offer up a space. It
Yeah.
does offer like a little bit of like, oh, I can care about you more because there is that space, or I can like walk into this as a third party because I'm not the one feeling all of this.
Right.
Like, you guys are, but
Right.
I can help guide you guys being with all of that, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it offers.
So then if, God willing, this does not happen, but do you feel like if something were to happen maybe a little bit closer in your circle, would you be able to still provide kind of doula services while it being so close to you?
I'm learning that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
learning that. Like we kind of said a little bit earlier before the interview, I had just come back from like working with friends and their mom and their family, and it proved harder than I thought. And not just the circumstances of everything, but also because they are close. They are close friends. And I think I could work with friends. It's because I'm still getting my like, you know, doula training wheels like really kind of oiled up, you know? Right now, everything's going to be really kind of wrinkly and hard.
Right.
And
right.
so I think I'll be able to, it'll be a lot smoother of a process moving forward and working. But I also think it's like some friends, it's like, no, I'm sorry.
You couldn't do it. Yeah, I get that.
Can't. It's like, because it's like, I know too much, or I've already been in such a strong friend role that it's like, I can't unsee things. But the good thing about it is like, I have great doula friends that like, I can recommend them to.
Yeah, you have like your Rolodex of people. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I saw you have a newsletter called Die, Laugh, Love, which I think is such an iconic. I mean, you need to like coin that. It's so good. What do you write about in that newsletter? Like, what's your
Shout
thing?
out to my friend Kenny. He was the one who was like, Die, Laugh, Love. There it is. I was like, yeah.
So good. So good.
I write about random things, whatever kind of comes to mind. So one of the most popular newsletters that people really like is like, I did end of life planning with my dad and the things I learned from that. Yeah, people like resonated of all ages. They're like, wow. And so like, it just shows that there's a need, right? Like a lot of intergenerational needs around death and dying and preparing. But for me, that experience was really special because I was like, Dad, do you want to open up a bottle of wine and just talk about this? And he's like, yeah, okay.
Love.
Yeah.
You have to have some levity about it because it is.
Completely.
I remember being 18 and it was kind of around the time my grandma passed. I was like in a boardroom at choosing whether or not, if I'm in a vegetative state, if I want them to pull the plug. And I was like, can we have some snacks? Can we like have an icebreaker before I choose this?
Really
please? Yeah. It's so wild. So is it kind of therapeutic to have a space where you can experience all of this and then kind of funnel it into writing?
Yeah, the purpose of it was really to make it more of an educated space, like a safe, like open space where it's like long form content where, because I'm not a short form content kind of it's hard for me to do like Instagram and smaller things, but long form, like, oh great, I have space to be able to explain who I am and why I think something's important. So it just fit my personality and the work, I think, better. But yeah, it served more so I wanted to make it just more educational, more of a place where people can like think about death, but not have to engage.
Right.
Unless they wanted to, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a series that I did that was like Tell Them Now, where people could write letters to people living and dying to just say what they wanted to say to them. Like open up a space where they can write letters for like a brother that died or a best friend that died or, you know, whoever, someone that's living, or maybe it's like Maya Angelou, you know, that it's like she's her life affected me so much, and I want to write to her and say these things. So I post those on that as well. But yeah, it's like, and then it's informative around like, these are all the ways that you can dispose of your body afterwards if you want, you know?
It's so wild because there are so many like technical, logical parts of death. And then there's this whole other fluffy, textured, icky, sticky, like emotional aspects to it. Yeah. And they're both so important. And if you put, I think, too much emphasis on one, then the other kind of falls by the wayside, but everyone will have their own balance, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people, their knee-jerk reaction is like, okay, figure out the funeral, let me go into logic, I can't deal with this. But that's not wrong, right? No. Like, it's
honestly,
just how you
it's
cope.
Where the opportunity is. Like, you have to see where the threads are that you can pull and be like, okay, we're going to start there because they just want to deal with the cemetery stuff right now.
Totally.
So it's like you start there. And then it usually opens up into other things.
Right.
But, which they probably wanted to talk to you about, but they couldn't get there yet.
Yeah.
So you have to just like go through the things that seem more reasonable.
Sure. And then ease your way in.
Yeah.
So this is a ridiculous question, and I think about this too with surgeons. Okay, let's say you come home from being with someone who passed.
Yeah.
You have your partner there, and then they like want to get frisky. How do you compartmentalize? Like, I think about my surgeon who did my back surgery. He like literally spliced me open and then like hooked up with his wife that night. I'm like, how do you compartmentalize?
Extra fleshy all over the
yeah, just so much skin.
So much flesh.
Yeah.
I probably would need a break. Like I think I would like need a day of just sleep, and then we can get frisky.
Totally.
Yeah,
Maybe even more than a day,
like,
couple days.
What can I take? Like,
yeah.
But no, I don't know if I could be frisky right away and get into it. Maybe there's a lot of pent up energy that will need it, but
sure.
What I've experienced is like, I need to just fucking sleep for an entire day.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, initially I'd feel bad about that. Like, no, why? And there was another death doula that I followed on Instagram, and she was the one who was like, I always need to sleep for an entire day after. I was like, oh, this is normal.
Like, thank you so much. Yeah. Needed that.
Needed some normalization on how much rest is needed for this job.
God.
Yeah. So I think it's just like rest and then sex.
Sure.
Yeah.
A little break in between.
Like, you want to be present in it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no way if I'm still looking at whatever just happened. I'm still like shaking off whatever's happened.
Well, I'm sure there may be some that need more time, and others, it depends on each scenario.
Yeah. I love that you think about your surgeon.
Yeah. I'm like, that's so insane. Like, how, and he just like does that every day. I'm like, I remember reading that serial killers and surgeons have two very similar brain scans.
Wow.
One just kind of uses one for evil and one for good. Like, there's no weirdness when it comes to, it makes no sense. So being around death, how does it make you feel about living?
Yeah.
Specifically for you. Like, how does that manifest for you?
Yeah. During Christmas time, this past Christmas, there was not a lot, but there's been like there were phone calls of like a lot of abrupt deaths. And that like triggered me, where I was like, whoa, it's like a seasonal thing. I don't know what's happening. Yeah. But it made me really like change my tune a little bit, where I started looking at everyone that I would see and be like, oh, this might be the last time I see you. Oh. But it was always like, it always ended up being very soft. Like that. Like, I went on a walk with my mom and we were chatting, and then I looked at her and like, it was just like, oh, this might be the last time I ever see you. Yeah. And there's a softening that happened. It's not weird. It's not scary. It just sort of just like, oh, it's a nice exercise. It's a really nice practice. Wow. Like, even looking at you right now, I'm like, this was so amazing to just be together right now. How lovely that we can like do this, you know? Yeah. And what if we don't see each other ever again?
It's such a wild concept. It really is. And I feel like until something happens close to you, generally that's when something sparks in your mind of like, I need to live each day to the fullest, you know?
Yeah.
And it is a gentle reminder that our time here is fleeting, and let's just have a silly goose time if we can. I know that's not the case for a lot of people, unfortunately, but
or like we don't need to think so far ahead.
Totally.
Like,
because who knows?
Right now. Who knows?
I know. Someone's probably having an anxiety attack listening to this right now, but so I ask everyone the same question at the end of each episode. What is one thing that you wish more people understood about you? That can be within the context of you being a death doula, or that can just be you as an individual.
Yeah. I think it's kind of what you brought up, where being able to, like the exercise of just seeing someone and being like, okay, this might be the last time. What does that what comes up for you? And just to like, I think it is important for people to experience and have the realization of impermanence, right? Like everything's fleeting. This interview is going to end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This interview is going to end. But how beautiful was it that we kind of could just share in this space? Or, the end of a relationship, or the end of like a walk with your mom, or just pay a little bit more attention to the ending of things, ending of moments, because it will shift things. It will shift our understandings of, our pace in our life. I think it actually creates some good pregnancy pauses,
Totally. Maybe some detachment too.
Yeah.
Not be so clinged onto something, because everything kind of has its time.
Yeah. And it's like, everything has its cycle. And how do we like just respect each cycle for what it is, and not like so look forward to like everything that needs to happen, wants to happen, and just being like, look, this is happening right now and it's ending, and the next thing is going to. So I think just understanding that death isn't just death. It's like there's cycles of death that happen every day, and how do we normalize that? How do we regulate that so that it is a part of our days, and it is a part of our relationships, and that we can punctuate our lives a little bit more, so that the pace does slow down, so we can enjoy it a little bit more.
Girl, I've been holding back tears like 3 times during this interview.
Let it go.
Thank you so much. I honestly don't have words for this. This was so special. And I want to plug your website and your socials. I know that's such an odd thing to say about like, if you know anyone is on their way out or thinking about it, but thank you so much. You're a dream.
Thank you.
Let's do this again. Who knows?
It happens so fast.
I know. Flies by.